starting down at the far end. This way. Mike? Nope.
Well, I just want to thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just want to thank. I'm thankful for the holidays, and just want to thank city and staff for putting together a great swearing in on last week, and to one of our new members on the city staff, Miss Mary Kate, assisting Mr. Wilder. So just want to send that shout out along with the holidays. It was very, very well. So just want to send that out.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Anyone else? Mr. Mayor?
Well, I just want to echo some of those same sentiments. I'm looking forward to working with the citizens as we look at how we can further develop what we're doing in the city and make sure we do everything we can to make them proud of us. I do want to thank the staff, as our other council members said, for the swearing in. And again, I look forward to working with all of our new council members and those who were re-elected. But anyway, I look forward to a great 4 years.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I have one announcement to bring to everybody's attention in case you've not seen the announcements that have been going out from the city on other channels. Just want to make sure everybody is aware that there is a meeting concerning crime. County Council member Ingrid Watson will host a community forum on rising crime, focusing on juvenile crime, which will be held November 28th. At 6 p.m. in the Student Center Ballroom at Bowie State University. The panel includes County Police Chief Aziz, State's Attorney Braveboy, Prince George's County Public School Superintendent House, and State Senator Watson. Obviously, as we've been out on the campaign trail most recently, we heard a lot about this from an assortment of folks. So I know it's near and dear to everybody's heart that this is a big issue that concerns a lot of people. This is an opportunity to go listen and participate, so I encourage everybody to do so. All righty. Yep. Mark, apparently we have an audio issue. People watching are unable to hear. Thank you kindly, sir. All right, we'll move forward on the agenda. We'll move on to the city manager's report. Mr. City Manager, welcome back from your travels.
Well, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and good evening, everyone, and to the residents in Bowie. And I like to say that, of course, our staff's doing a lot of things. We're picking up the trash, we're recycling, but the big push here is with the streets division in round 2 of leaf collections. And if you live in the city and you rake your leaves out, you know how thorough and professional they are. And they did a great job on Quarter Horse Drive, and us right there doing that all over town. That's what we're working on hard right now. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to old business. City's traffic calming policy discussion. Council is looking for a presentation from staff. We look forward to hearing what you might have to offer. Thank you, Mr. Mears.
Very good. Daniel Mears, Assistant City Manager. So at the October 2nd City Council meeting, the council began discussing looking at making changes to the city's traffic calming policy, and had an interest in exploring ideas in terms of hearing some feedback in terms of which streets and concerns the city council had, maybe that they'd been hearing from some of the residents. And trying to get a sense of the scale of the issue and what could be done to modify the city's traffic calming program to help alleviate concerns of speeding throughout the city. We did hear from some of the council members with quite a number of streets in regards to where there had been concerns of speeding expressed. The first point I wanted to make was we did have concerns with some roads that are not the jurisdiction of the city of Bowie, both with State Highway and with the county. There was concern with speeding on Lanham 7 Road, which is a State Highway road, concern on Church Road, Mitchellville Road, Mount Oak, and Racetrack Road, all of which are maintained by Prince George's County. So one of the things in the packet is we have drafted letters to each of those agencies, to State Highway Administration and to Department of Public Works with the county, to ask them to look at these roads from the lens of traffic calming and investigate to see if there are things that they can recommend or implement to help alleviate some of those concerns from a traffic calming standpoint. So for one of the items this evening, if the council is accepting of sending those letters, if we get a motion to that effect, and we will certainly get those out. So immediately with the concerns on speeding and also with some of the other things, we had a concern about pothole, stop sign. We sent those out to our police department so that they could begin working on that from an enforcement standpoint, so those could be reported in. One of the Prior to this discussion, one of the things that our staff had done is we created an internal speed task force. Essentially, speed is something that is dealt with by both our police department and our public works department. We have speed monitoring devices that are maintained and controlled by our public works department for assessing speeds from sort of a roadway management standpoint. We also have speed trailers that are maintained by the police department so they can collect data on traffic concerns and use that from their enforcement avenue in terms of taking a look at that. There are largely really 4 different areas that the city uses or has available to use in regards to managing speed and managing traffic within the community. The first and sort of the ground level is education and awareness. This is whether that is articles in newsletters or social media or other platforms to educate the public in regards to speeding and issues associated with that, or if it is awareness from the use of speed monitors or other devices to let people know what their speed is. Sort of a basic floor is letting people know about speeding concerns, where they are, and what they can do about that. A second level that we have is enforcement, and whether that is an officer on the street that is monitoring speed and other traffic violations, to have direct officer to driver engagement associated with that. And that could involve warnings, tickets, or just the mere presence of the officer for providing some enforcement. The other enforcement that we have, which we've at the last meeting recently discussed recently expanding, is the speed camera program. And so that enables the city to enforce throughout the city at approved locations and extending our officers' ability to reach out into the community and enforce speed. The 2 other things in terms of traffic calming come to visual constriction and physical constriction of roadways. Visual constriction is to provide, whether through striping, whether through landscaping techniques, visually perceived elements that make people drive slower when they're going down a road. A road that does not have a center line stripe on it may seem wider and more readily able for people to drive down it more quickly, but you put center line stripe and it may appear to be visually narrower and people may drive more slowly down that road. Physical constrictions are things like speed bumps, They are chicanes, things that either change the vertical elevation of the road surface or the horizontal orientation of the road surface to constrict the roadway so people will drive slower because it is physically constricted. So those are the four main broad areas that we take a look at traffic calming for the city. Our staff got together to take a look at what we could do in regards to making a change to our traffic calming policy. And one of the things that we wanted to communicate, we did get some prices on some different measures that are available. This is a broad cost that is available. A speed hump, the estimated cost for 2023 would be about $3,200. A speed table would be about $6,500. Chicanes could cost $48,000. A choker could cost $6,500. These are very broad estimates in terms of the cost of what these can be. These will certainly vary on the location that they're placed. It'll vary on the width of the roadway, whether they're purchased as just one or in a package with multiple things or other street improvements. But that's just to give a little idea in terms of what the cost is associated with that. So as our staff was sitting and talking about what could be done in terms of changes to the city's traffic calming program, what was requested of us was to take a look at reducing the percentage of people that live along the roadway that could advocate for a new traffic calming measure. And we had a couple of concerns from the staff in regards to this in terms of reducing that threshold and turning it to the community for making a decision. The first concern is really in regards to whether or not a particular device or a particular traffic management technique would be good to do from a traffic engineering standpoint. The traffic calming policy that we have today was taken from Prince George's County. It was developed with the assistance of traffic engineers to make recommendations in regards to how to determine when one of these measures should be put in, and essentially having some objective lens in regards to when they're put in. And a concern is if we reduce the threshold too much from residents along the street, we may get in a situation where the people along the street are wanting a traffic calming measure that may not be recommended from an engineering perspective, because we may have some considerations for unintended consequences, whether that would be diverting traffic away from that roadway onto a minor street nearby that may not be as able to handle traffic that may be diverted from that roadway. It could be in regards to pedestrian access and where speed bumps or other devices may be located in relation to pedestrian crossings or things along those lines. And of course, we have the concern in regards to emergency response vehicles, snow plows, and things along those lines. The other concern in regards to this comes down to a financial one in regards to essentially having a budget associated with all of these items. We would need some sort of guide in regards to how much we could allocate per year in the budget to put traffic calming in. So what we're really kind of recommending, it's a little bit of a punt in terms of a decision to come back to you all as part of our budget with a slate of recommendations in regards to different traffic calming measures that we could implement, and sort of a broad dollar amount in regards to how much we could put towards those in an upcoming year. So we can get some guidance in regards to the scale of the effort to go forward with traffic calming. So rather than in undefined public response in regards to putting traffic calming measures across the city without consideration for an engineering look or without concern for a budget look. We come at it from the other side and I guess adjust the policy within the limits of further engineering analysis and further budget analysis of what the council may wish to spend in that regard. So I'll leave it there, open up for questions and perhaps more discussion amongst the council.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mears. Appreciate it. I will look to the council, see if we have anybody with any questions or comments.
If I may.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
I just wanted to go back to one of the things you talked about there, Daniel, and we talked about it before. When do you believe we will have, and maybe this is a better question for the chief, though, I would like to know when they have a better handle on how the additional speed cameras we'll be having on some of these areas and some of those streets, because I would like to see if that changes the projection of what we need to do. I know you're going to take that as part of a comprehensive review of it, but do you have any general idea of when they may be able to start doing that?
So this is going to be several months. We, as the council knows, we have a couple dozen new locations where the speed cameras can go, but we don't have that many more cameras. So they need to get rotated throughout the community and they're left for a week, couple of weeks, few weeks at a time at each location, depending on the volume of the issues that they've had in the past. So I think it'll really be several months before we have some good preliminary data from the speed cameras in regards to how long they were out and what the responsiveness had been from the cameras. As we do know from the speed camera program that we have had, when the cameras have been in place, there has been a steady reduction in regards to the speed at the location of where those cameras have been. There is an exception to that, and you all will be seeing that in forthcoming information. That exception is this year. There's been actually a dramatic increase in speed camera violations in this past year compared to years prior, but all the way up until 2020 and the pandemic, there had been a steady reduction in speed wherever those cameras had been located. The staff remains bullish on the use of speed cameras and even beyond the use of speed cameras, the location of those cans for where the cameras can be. And I anticipate the budget recommendation that you're going to be seeing this upcoming year is going to include an expansion of locations for where we have the cans and where there is availability, even before we get really good data on the effectiveness.
Okay, now that answered my next question, which was going to be, will we have that data and be able to utilize that partially in the estimates of what we do about traffic calming? Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Ndebumadu, you had a comment? No. Councilmember Rogers, thank you.
Thank you. I had the same question that the mayor had. What was going to be the net effect of the police officers being out there as well as the speed cameras? But I do want to clarify the prices, because I think I got them all, but the chicane was way out of range, which is the $48,000. The last one was the choker. How much was that?
Mr. Aldi has provided me a choker cost of $6,500, which is essentially a curb extension at mid-block locations that narrow a street by extending the sidewalk or widening a planting strip. Excuse me, that's essentially adding some additional curbing. And all of this certainly varies depending on whether or not it is something that we need to engineer, or we can just hire a contractor to go and install. One of our I think broader concerns in regards to our traffic management is the avoidance of an unintended consequence with putting in some of these devices that may create a safety issue we weren't anticipating.
I understood the aspect around going into residential areas, because it seems like now you have the main thoroughfares within the city covered with the traffic cameras as well as the police officers. But when you start going into communities, that's where it becomes an engineering problem. So yeah, I understood that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Turner.
Thank you very much. Councilman Brady, yes?
Get the light on first. Forgive me for making two quick other outside comments, but relates to traffic, if you will. With regards to the letter to the county exec that we passed and approved in the consent agenda, I appreciate staff's effort to word it. It was excellently worded. I would use that as leverage. Since they did such an outstanding job, we need to get them to look at Racetrack Road next. So that's one comment. A second item is related to driving traffic onto residential streets because the through roads aren't properly built, designed, constructed. And in particular 301, I'd like to suggest that we invite State Highways to come in and so we can have a serious discussion with them on ways that we can address the congestion of 301 through Bowie. Getting on to traffic calming, I would be curious, most of the time that I was in the council and a week I spent in a traffic engineering course, one thing they used to strongly comment was that stop signs are not used for traffic calming. Yet I was shocked when Melford, the traffic proposal as Melford was coming through, actually put all-way stops on Bel Air Drive as a result of. So I'm curious, is that a change in philosophy? Because, you know, there are some long, wide roads that people seem to forget that they're residential, and they seem to think that they can drive 55 on them. And maybe if you broke it up and had multiple stop signs slowing them down, it might work. So just staff's comment with regard to using stop signs to deal with traffic calming.
So one of the things as you get into the recommendations for different traffic calming techniques, there always ends up being that local exception in regards to conditions on the ground. On Bel Air and Stony Brook and Ken Hill, that intersection there, that's an offset intersection that it had its own concerns, and I was not here at the time that the engineers had put that together, but I assume they had analyzed that and said that the benefits derived from having stop signs all ways in those locations was going to outweigh the negative effects of having quote-unquote mid-block stop signs. The larger concern was stop signs that are located mid-block, where you have a larger roadway and smaller roadways leading into it, and having always stops there is people tend to run through the stop sign or not expect a stop sign at those locations. And there are many examples in other locations where they've tried the all-way stops and accidents have actually increased because the people that were stopped on the minor road coming onto the major one had an expectation that the people on the major road were going to stop, but the major road continued on. And that is a regular concern that traffic engineers have in regards to using mid-block stop signs. And it does depend on experience. If you have a location where you're trying, there are different things you try to address with traffic calming. You may be trying to address speed. You may be trying to address accidents that may be occurring in a location. You may be trying to address pedestrian accessibility. And the approach may be a little bit different if you're trying to address speed versus reducing accidents. And I think the majority of what we're talking about when we look at these streets across the city, we're not trying to reduce accidents. We're reducing the potential of an accident or the severity of an accident, but largely what we're trying to address is the perception of speed that people have going through the communities, that people are driving too fast where they're at. Some of the other concerns in regards to stop signs that get put in places where people don't expect is hard braking and hard accelerations. And you find that with speed bumps and some of the other devices as well, is you create a new challenge for the people in the community that people are driving very quickly over that speed bump, and now there's a large clunk clunk noise as the car bottoms out in the middle of the night and things along those lines, and you create new challenges that you didn't expect before. So similar to the stop signs.
I mean, I didn't mean to cut you off. Were you finished?
Yes.
Okay. It would be interesting if we could get if the council could get a copy of the traffic study that was done to support those stop signs, because it's contradictory. As you said, there's grave concerns when adding a stop sign when it's not warranted, yet all of a sudden they showed up. On the third page of your memo, there's the first full paragraph. It says, as we learned at the MML Fall Conference this past week in traffic calming session, a widely used guide on traffic calming is traffic calming state of the practice. I did a Google search this afternoon on that, and the 4 or 5 entries all listed it as being published in 1999. And there's no indication of whether it has been updated or revised. Are we still using a 24-year-old document as the basis for what we're deciding to do now?
So at that municipal league session, the presenters were sort of using that as an example of so-called an original document, an original comprehensive study that sort of paved the way for more of that, more traffic calming work in the United States. That is not what we would necessarily use today. That was sort of that first comprehensive study that sort of laid the foundation for it. The Federal Highway Administration has a traffic calming primer that it makes available on its website that's available. It lists a whole lot of information in regards to traffic calming basics. They keep it up to date with other studies and things that are available to that. And that's a much better resource for what has been looked at in different locations. Okay. And of course, studies do vary from geography to geography. There's, I forget the community, I think it's in Indiana. There's a community that has gone full in on roundabouts, and they have, more than 100 different roundabouts within their community. Their elected officials are fully bought into it. The community's fully bought into it, and it has drastically changed that community from a traffic safety standpoint in terms of reducing accidents, which is a goal that community had. But there was a lot of community buy-in, and they were willing to fund it, and that was one of the things they had pursued.
And the interesting term you used there was community buy-in. The problem that we have in this country, at least, is everyone seems to think that the road is theirs to drive it on as they wish. 2 quick comments. With regards to the speed indicating signs that you have, the electronic ones, I would support more of them throughout the city. I only have a concern that especially a young, I'll say it, male driver may see that as a challenge to see how high he can get that number up rather than responding in the right way. And the other is with regards to the camera. I would support and suggest maybe looking at, if we're looking at having 25 speed cameras in the city, maybe we have 50 locations and we just don't tell people where the 25 are located. They see the enclosure and may think there's a camera there, it may not be there, so it may have that same effect. So thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Brady, appreciate it. Any further comments, questions? I recognize Councilmember Estev.
I'd like to second everything Dennis Brady just said. In addition, on the stop sign question, one of the things that's come up in my conversations with State Highway specifically, we've talked about 301 and 197 and a couple other roads, and I've raised the question of stop signs with them. Their perspective, and I don't know that this is a part of their code officially, but what they shared with me was that even though an overuse of stop signs can diminish the seriousness with which people take them, they do tend to slow people down. Even if people might do a rolling stop, they do have the effect of getting people to slow down to a safer speed, to look around, even if they don't come to a complete stop and move forward. I was at Bowie Station Court and Maple Avenue, where we've had a lot of complaints about speeding on a local road, and I observed that at the stop sign midway through that road at Bowie Station Court, I was there for about a half hour with a resident, and sure enough, vehicles rarely come to a complete stop, but they do slow down, and they'll go down to 2 or 3 miles an hour and kind of roll on through and then go on. I strongly endorse and would encourage my colleagues to look seriously at making it easier to implement four-way stops in locations where we have a lot of concerns. It's not a perfect solution. It will engender some frustration from some of our residents, but I think compared to speed humps, compared to a lot of the alternatives, there is some potential there to try and implement that. And I would encourage staff to do as they suggest in their report, which is to come back with us with some more options in addition to the striping and the visual cues, which we would probably need to do in addition to those stops specifically, or implement them alone. I'd be very interested to continue that conversation. My only other comment on the flashing speed indicators, I've found over the years that those are a great tool. The first, second, maybe even the third time a resident or a group of residents approach us about speeding, but by the fourth or fifth time, it tends to have the opposite effect where resident perception is concerned, where it begins to send the signal that we're not going to do anything, we're just going to put up these flashing lights, and everyone seems to have anecdotes about how no one takes the lights seriously. So there is the risk of overuse with those flashing lights, and that has come up a lot in my conversations across the area. I appreciate staff continue to work on this. We obviously have more to do. I look forward to those continued conversations.
Thank you, Councilmember Estev. Councilmember Ndebumadu.
Thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem Wolfley. Appreciate the presentation, Assistant City Manager Mears. First question is, can you share the status on the follow-up that you had with Prince George's County in regards to the stop sign on Peach Walker and Mount Oak?
I don't have a status on that today. I apologize.
Okay, and just so my awareness is, and as well as the constituency's awareness, we reached out to the county, let them know about the stop sign, and essentially, do we plan on following up with them on where that might go?
We reported it the very next day after we received it, but I do need to make note to make sure that we follow up on that.
Awesome. If you could just let us know what the comeback is on that, that'd be super helpful. Thank you. And then based on this report or the memo that you put together, I guess I'd like to understand, is there an approach that you're recommending in the near term? Because I'm not sure that that's very clear here, what the actual short-term approach is.
The short-term approach is going to be for the budget that we come back to the City Council with. It will contain a number of recommendations in regards to, I anticipate an expansion of the speed camera program in terms of the locations associated with that, funding associated with more speed awareness in terms of those speed monitoring awareness devices, and those can actually take the place of a number of different styles, whether those are static, where they just display the speed of the car coming along, or they're more interactive, where they could have flashing lights to alert people to going over the speed limit, or ones that even capture data from the vehicles that go along. The other recommendation is going to be an expansion of actual traffic calming dollars for traffic calming devices, whether that be additional striping throughout the community, perhaps a recommendation in terms of where that striping could go to provide visual constrictors, and also a recommendation in regards to physical constriction that we can bring forward to the council. So the council can see this in context of not only do we have this slate of things that we can do, but also what the budget of impacts of those are going to be. This is a large community with a lot of road miles associated with it, and I think you saw from that list of concerns that we've got, it spreads across the entire community. And so this is a large item to get into and begin to work towards. And I think this may be something we want to be tackling over multiple years. And I think that's why you will need to see sort of a budget implication associated with this, rather than just a policy proposal today without a deeper dive from staff in regards to sort of the funding implications of what that would be. We don't want to open up your checkbook with a policy recommendation that is going to have a price tag you later find out to be unacceptable.
Thank you, that's helpful. I think the comment that I would make to my colleagues is that it sounds like we don't have a short-term approach, because theoretically with what you're saying, it sounds like you're looking at an implementation of 2024 July, August, until we see some sort of reprieve for constituent complaints on safety and speeding in the selected areas. That, in my opinion, sounds like a very long time. So I guess the comments that I would have for my colleagues is, I think we probably need a short-term approach on how we plan to mitigate some of these issues, whether that's with awareness and education, whether that is whatever idea that has come up with, that just sounds like a long time for concerns to go unaddressed. And I'm not saying that you're not addressing them, but in terms of to kind of get a robust plan together, do an analysis, put it in the budget. The budget's not passed until next year, June. So that just sounds like a long time. So that would be my feedback there. Then the next question is stripping and visual constriction. Do you have striping and visual constriction. Do you have a estimated cost that's associated with that, or do you still need more time to research that?
The costs that would be associated with that would be a determination of what roads could benefit from being striped, and then it is a matter of how much striping you would want to do. If that is taking an unstriped road and putting a center line on it, maybe taking a road that has a center line on it and putting shoulders on it and creating a visual perception of a narrower lane, and that is just going to be dollars per mile in regards to the striping, and then going out into the future would be dollars in the future to refresh that striping.
So as a follow-up, with the list of streets that we gave that are listed in this memo, has there been any type of, I guess, attempt to kind of estimate that based off of any number of these roads that were provided?
We don't have that prepared comprehensively today. We don't have Deputy Chief here today. The efforts that we've done since then has been in regards to the report out to the traffic safety group in terms of the police department for them to do officer-led enforcement on these streets.
Awesome.
Sorry, the city manager was asking whether or not speed cameras were associated with that. I did not compare this list of streets we got from city council members to the speed camera, but I do know that some of those were included. So on here, I believe we had Millstream on here. And I know Millstream was one of the roads that subsequently got a speed camera location on that. So we did have some of these streets did get speed cameras added to them since this list was put together back in October.
I think what might be helpful as well for this body is maybe if we could get an update on this list in terms of areas that we've already mitigated and the ones that are outstanding that essentially still need us to look at, for whether that's striping, visual constriction, education awareness. I think that would be helpful.
Well, we haven't done any of the striping yet.
I understand that.
Right,
I'm saying for the areas that have already been addressed, it would be helpful to understand what has already been addressed so we can understand what's outstanding to know what we need to do going forward and what options make the most sense. I think my next question is on education and awareness. What's the goal with that?
Education and awareness is probably the easiest thing to do, but it's probably the most difficult in terms of long-term effectiveness. This can be something where there is an active speed enforcement campaign to educate drivers in a particular neighborhood. It can be an article that's included in the newsletter, but as people come into the community, they will not be familiar with the speed awareness education we have provided in the past, and it doesn't have a high return in terms of, I guess, penetration in terms of return for people in terms of what they can do. It's easy to do. It doesn't cost a lot to do, but it has fairly low effectiveness ultimately.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought as well. Okay, that makes sense. All right, the last thing that I'll mention, Councilmember Brady had mentioned 301 State Highway. I've heard it be referenced here a number of different times. I met with the District 3 engineer, Derek Gunn, on November 9th in regards to 301 and a lot of concerns regarding roads in District 4 that are state-owned roads. Just so this council knows, as well as District 4 constituents, the pothole on Mount Oak, as well as 301, that has been repaired. So that's good. We can check that off the list. That's good to go. So they did repair that. I think you also reported that because that was in the list that I reported on the pothole.
Yeah, that pothole actually got graded the very next week with their repaving efforts.
I saw that.
It happened unassociated with our reporting it.
Great. Yeah, love that. So that's good. So they informed me during that meeting. And then also, part of the feedback that I received from the team, and I'm still waiting for their follow-up, and I'll forward it to staff as soon as I get it because they have a number of different things that they're looking through. Part of the feedback that I received from State Highway was that we, in our transportation letter, referenced, I'm just gonna pull it up really quickly, that we sent to State Highway back in August. We referenced a study on project planning that was completed in 2007. Part of the feedback that I received during that meeting is that it is unusual and uncommon for State Highway to act on a study or a project plan that was completed so long ago. And part of the ask that we may need to consider in terms of this body is to send an updated request for them to do another project planning study so that we can, and with that updated project planning study, there's no guarantee that the widening of 301 is going to be funded immediately because that's a bigger issue that we need to focus on. But essentially within that, what they can do is assess what are some of those short-term remedies that they can do for now to figure out like what's easier to implement in the foreseeable future while we figure out how do we actually get 301 wide and take up that issue. So I just wanted to share that with this body as well as city staff, that was a feedback that I received during that meeting. They are going to follow up on the exact language that would be helpful for us to request or ask for, and then I'll bring that back to this body for our consideration and for our discussion to see what type of letter and what type of request we want to send over to State Highway so that we can be the most helpful in aiding in our efforts. So that was a feedback that I got there. And then I think the other kind of traffic issue that I heard about in District 4 that might not actually be on the radar is Marketplace Boulevard, which is a light that has actually not turned on yet, that I've received a number of different complaints about, which is right next to Wawa on that South Lake development. They are also looking into that project, and they'll be sending the project phasing. I don't know if you already have that. I don't think we do because they mentioned that they haven't sent it yet. So I don't know if we have the project phasing for that light being turned on, but it's not on yet.
No, it's not on yet.
Yeah.
And that is technically outside of the
is that
city.
outside of city limits?
Yes.
Okay. I assumed because it was right in front of South Lake that it was within city limits, but okay, that makes sense. But at least I'll forward it to you just so you have it for awareness. If anybody asks, it might be helpful. So that's pretty much the follow. And then we talked about a number of different things that are unrelated to speeding, like trash and things like that, which I won't get into in this meeting because we're talking about traffic. But I think for this body, just really thinking about what short-term remedies could look like, whether that's we increase education awareness. I don't know if that's the answer, but like just really looking at short-term remedies, because I think July of 2024 is a little long to really address some of these issues. That's just my personal opinion on behalf of my district. So thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you very much. I very much appreciate comments. Thank you. And yes, Mr. City Manager.
Hey, sir, the purpose of this presentation tonight was to have a discussion about traffic calming within the city in particular. And there was a bit of a recommendation that Mr. Mears drafted what he thought ought to happen. But from our perspective, it was, we did some fact finding and we were presenting this to you all for discussion and now, so what I need now is for you all to tell us what is the mission, you know, what I think ought to happen under the circumstances is that we find some money, hire a professional to take a look at our policy and to come up with some forces of action that we can implement into it, we can put into next year's budget and then take action. And in the meantime, we can do some selective striping of roads. We can do that without any addition to the budget. We can do that with our own current budget. We can use our police department to enforce speed control in areas that have been identified by the list that you all submitted. Also, we'll be implementing the new speed cameras. We can utilize those cameras to hopefully mitigate the speeding in the neighborhoods because it does work. They do work. They slow people down, but what ought to happen if you are inclined to do this, because this is a policy issue, we need to get somebody to take a look at our policy, get some guidance from you all as to how you want it changed, and then come up with some accurate pricing and things like that. This is the sort of mission assignment I'm looking for, because right now all we were tasked to do was have a discussion, and we've done that. Now, if we're ready, but we can move forward. We do not have the staff to take on a major traffic management project, but we can hire somebody to do it, and hopefully be ready for our discussion in April. And in the meantime, use our police department and our streets division to manage things until something can be brought back. So that's what I'm asking for now. What is the assignment to us? Okay. From the council.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. I'd like to make a couple comments on the discussion side of things as well. So, staff, I want to thank you for the presentation and the background information you provided. And as usual, I always have something to add, comment, or question about. On the listing for streets concerning for speed, based on the comments that I heard Council Member Ndebumadu making, I'm not sure that list is comprehensive, in that I know that there are a number of others that, the list that I saw, that were missing some that are near and dear to my heart and my constituents. Can you speak to that?
When we put this list together, we received streets from 3 of the 7 council members at the time.
Gotcha. All right. Well, let me add a few for you. You have a pencil handy? There we go. And we have some new council members as well, so perhaps they may want to have the opportunity to provide some input as well. But I know that Tulip Grove and Trinity, I know that Tulip Grove already has interest, or we already have a camera going in that area. But Trinity is something that's a problem area, as are Brunswick and Beaverdale. And then in the K section, Kendale, Cambridge, and Kinderbrook. And in the F section, Felter. I think most of the others were out there, and I would suggest that others may have an opportunity at some point to, or may want to provide some additional thoughts on some of those things, some of those streets, given their recent accession to this council. On the matter of the letters for the state, can we add 197, please? 197 is a notorious accident scene from not just the 2-lane section, but also the 4-lane section with the suicide lane in the middle. That's long-term been an issue, and I know we have speed cameras near the schools, but there certainly warrants some additional attention on those roads there. And then for the county, if you could add Highbridge to that letter, particularly in the end near the Highbridge Shopping Center, there is what I think people assume is a runway because they make the turn, rev their engines, and off they go down the hill on a nice straightaway. And I know there have been a couple accidents, including there's a constituent there who's been the recipient of unintended guests on a couple of occasions that have barged through his fence. And I'm not sure if this is the appropriate place for that, but we'd like to see if we can get the county to look at some bollards or something along those lines for that section across from the shopping center. I want to comment also on on the my favorite example, which is Stony Brook in Superior. And kind of, I think it highlights our issues, or at least my perception of what the issue is with traffic calming. We know we have a problem there, yet the traffic calming studies, persistently come back as kind of don't do anything about it. It just barely misses or suggests some, super onerous thing like completely redesigning that intersection and taking up people's yards and so forth. And I think that that's the type of problem we need to solve, where we know we have a problem from the constituent side, where clearly when those houses are receiving, cars in their front yard as a result of either accidents or accident avoidance, or people are feeling unsafe that they can't cross the road there, that we need to do something. And unfortunately, the traffic calming policies that we have don't yield any solution other than kind of the status quo, which is clearly a problem. I'm agnostic on what the solution is. I don't think it's a traffic camera, a traffic light. I don't think it's a traffic circle, but there are other solutions out there. And I think where we need to be with the policy is in a position where we have greater access to initiate traffic calming efforts so that we can address areas of concern, which may mean just changing the methodology of how we go about that. The other aspect is that I think the policies that we have, as you mentioned, are based on the county, which is a different animal than we are, and they're different than the state. And I don't think a one rule fits all is appropriate. We are obviously closer to our constituents, and we know our neighborhoods. We have smaller areas. We don't have the same level of traffic or expense because associated, miles of roads. So I think we have to revisit the policies in terms of how they differ based on the fact that we are a municipality as opposed to a larger jurisdiction. For the for staff this evening, I think maybe we could take care of the first couple of items first. I understand that you're looking for an okay on the letter on the letters for this. Do you need a vote or just a consensus?
Simple motion consensus would be great.
Consensus? Yeah. Anybody? I'll look for a consensus. Is everybody comfortable with the letters as they're written with the amendments that I proposed? All right. Consider that consensus to send those letters then.
Great, we will get those out.
With those adjustments. So to ensure I'm not monopolizing the floor, I'll look around again to my council colleagues to see if there's anybody who has any additional thoughts or comments about what our next steps forward might be. Councilmember Ndebumadu. Mr. Mayor?
Yes, thank you very much. I think that the way we might want to look at how we move forward goes back to what our general discussion is. I think the city manager's point about hiring someone to really do a study and those things is good. I think that's something we should be looking at as part of our budget process, later. But I do think that we should, sort of what you said there, Mayor Pro Tem, and that is we should look at what can we utilize now. Why don't we move forward with seeing what we can do now in the interim, come back, see what we can do, make those thoughts, make those things happen now, and then look at how much further we want to go on hiring someone to do a professional study and do that. But I think right now, if we collaborate, or the staff continues to collaborate, we can get a start going on that and do that. The other thing I will say is something that I said before, and I think they mention it in the report, but it is important that we keep in mind when we do our traffic calming and whatever we look at is there is a challenge for accessible vehicles on some of the traffic calming measures because they have to be so low to the ground, as well as some of our emergency vehicles. And should there be a snowstorm and other things, that can really pose a problem as well with some of the traffic calming things. So I think you're right, we'll need an expert to come in, but I think we should look at what we have now, with what the staff is putting together, and see what things we can take immediate steps, and then come back and work forward from the budget process on how expansive we want to make this study to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilwoman Rogers.
I would say.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
thank you so. I appreciate that, Mayor Pro Tem Wolfley. I completely agree with the mayor's thoughts. I really, really want to urge our council to look at short-term solutions, and I think with our resources that we can kind of come up with what that looks like now with the delta of what we've already addressed. I think the other thing that I'd like to just ask staff, may not have the answer tonight, but just a ballpark. What is typically the cost of these assessments if we bring an outside party in?
So I guess there's two levels of taking a look at the policy. It can be strictly one that is just an in-office taking a look at the policy and seeing if there is something that needs to be updated to make it more reflective of a suburban municipality rather than a policy that was really tailored to take care of, you know, an entire county with a broader range of street types associated with that. That would be a study what I would anticipate is going to come in the tens of thousands of dollars. If we were to be undertaking a study where we want to be doing more data analysis in terms of more collection across the community and to be making more specific recommendations in neighborhoods, we will no doubt be getting into hundreds of thousands of dollars to be getting additional speed monitoring and more engineering analysis that is case specific for each of the different neighborhoods that we have. That's going to be a broad ballpark in terms of those two approaches.
Just one follow-up question on that, and then I have a statement. Do we have, pardon my ignorance with this question, I'm going to preface it. Do we have leftover speed cameras that we can put other places? Is that kind of, or we still have those rotating ones that rotate?
We just have rotating ones. So all the speed cameras that we have, we effectively lease those cameras, and they rotate throughout the community. So one thing just for the council's knowledge in regards to those speed cameras themselves, a camera itself is about $3,000 a month in terms of where we have that located. So part of the challenge in terms of locating a speed camera, if you put that speed camera on a low volume road, there is not going to be a cost recovery associated with having that out there. This is not to say we're in the business of cost recovery when it comes to speed control and trying to improve safety throughout the community, but there certainly is a awareness that some places it does more good than others just because of the volumes on those streets.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that context. I definitely am empathetic to the complexity of the discussion and the topic that we're talking about, because I don't necessarily know that I would be an advocate to look into putting more speed cameras in certain places, because what I've seen in my district is the behavior pattern is typically we put a speed camera in a location, people become very familiar with the speed camera being there, so then they slow down, and then the person that actually gets caught by the speed camera is the person that's late to work that day, or the person that's late to pick up their kid from school. And so I don't necessarily know how fully effective that is to advocate for more of them, and I think this assessment could be really, really helpful for our discussion during this budget cycle. But one thing that I'd like to see done in the assessment, where I think we actually have a unique opportunity that I spoke to the Prince George's County's OCIO office about when I met with them a month ago, is I think if this study that we conduct can include how we can better leverage technology so that we can go after some federal grants for some of this stuff, I think it might be very helpful, and we might be able to recuperate some costs that way. So I'd like to be able to see, and I know the IT committee has talked about this with their wonderful work, time and time again. I'd like to be able to see how we can leverage IoT sensors to really understand how traffic patterns are evolving, since I know you looked into the data and it was deemed that we couldn't leverage that data at this time. It wasn't applicable to the city, which I appreciate. But it would be nice to see if this study can address some of that, to figure out if that's something that we can be forward looking to kind of lead the way. And I know C Pleasant has done some work with IoT sensors, not in particular to traffic patterns, but in other areas like sustainability. But it would be nice to see if we could leverage it there, just so as we need certain upgrades, we're better able to show data to go after some of these federal grants to kind of take that cost off of our budget and put that on the federal money that's available. So, thank you.
I just have one comment in regards to federal grants that typically come along with those. Often that comes in regards to safety mitigation for places where they have fatalities and other serious injuries, in terms of where those dollars tend to go. The issue that we have in Bowie is it's really universal for pretty much anywhere they have roads. It is the perception of speed. And from some of the roads that we have on this list, some of these roads are so short, people don't have an opportunity to get up to speed, yet they still made the list because people have a concern and a perception of speed. And I think that is a real perception that people have been having over this past year. It has been borne out in regards to our existing traffic camera data that there is. It is pervasive. It is throughout the community. And for Bowie, thankfully, it is not one that is resulting in significant accidents that are getting personal injuries and deaths. We do have those that occur in Bowie. Those are primarily on our major thoroughfares and not within our neighborhood streets. So we are working on dealing with perceptions of safety and also the potential for accidents, and trying to mitigate all of those. So we do not have a cluster where we have lots of personal injuries and accidents that are occurring. We are really trying to mitigate the speed and the potential for incidents that come from higher speeds throughout the community. And I think we certainly recognize that the concern that all of you on the council are hearing, it is very broadly felt throughout this community.
I think one just additional context that I'd like to offer, I appreciate the perspective. The only thing I'll push back on a little bit is that the federal government does have a mandate to modernize and embrace innovation. And so there are a number of different grants, because I met with Prince George's County's OCIO's office, and they are looking at these grants. There are a number of different grants that are available for counties and municipalities and states to go after adopting more proactive measures so that they can understand how traffic patterns are evolving to get ahead of safety when it comes to speeding or when it comes to fatalities. So I wouldn't necessarily just limit those grants to fatalities in terms of what I've seen available. Not saying that your perspective is not accurate, but what I am saying is there are a number of different ones that can be because they are looking to leverage case studies to understand how we can be adopting more innovative technologies, because there is a push for technology, and as a technology professional. I'm very much an advocate for that. There are a number of grants available for us to embrace innovation and leverage IoT to do so, to be able to predict how patterns are evolving so that we can get ahead of these improvements and not have such a reactive posture. And that's not unique to the city of Bowie. I think that's a United States issue. And so just want to offer that those grants are available. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember. Councilmember Rogers?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So I'm a very strategic person. I think big picture. So what I've heard throughout this discussion is broken down into 3 categories. One is what we can do now, or what we're doing now, which is the police involvement as well as the rotating cameras. The second piece is the policy piece, because the policy still has to be updated or changed or revised so that we're not truly reflecting Prince George's County policy. And the third piece gets more to what been discussed around funding. That's your assessment piece, where you may have to go to that extra step after you update your policies and bring someone to actually do an assessment, to look at, you know, what's the best fit for this community, as well as the funding sources that would be available to help us implement those things. So that's my comment. I think that looking at it from a big picture, it's doable. It's just a matter of organizing it so that we can implement it and make sure that we mitigate people having accidents and getting hit by cars. I appreciate what I heard the city manager say. What's the next step? And the next step right now, since we've already started with the police patrolling as well as the speeding cameras. So that next step would be, let's look at the policies, and then let's assess those policies and figure out what we can do for the community. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Truesdale?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I want to concur and thank the city management and city staff for bringing this. The process, it seemed like for the most part, you know, we're definitely going to have to look into hiring a company to come in. That sounds like that's the longer term goal, but for the most part, I appreciate the process that we're even in. A lot of these streets, some of these streets are in my district, and you know, so some things are happening. For the most part, a lot of my constituents, they are, you know, they're more concerned about, you know, just having police presence in terms of, you know, kind of the old-fashioned, you know, you may have a police here, kind of trafficking, not trafficking, but, you know, taking measurements and speed periodically. So what does that look like in terms of a shorter term? It may be something that can, you know, be a smaller budget for a shorter term goal right now.
So I think there are 2 things in your comment in regards to people wanting to see police. That is very much a perception issue and a feeling of safety. The ability to see an officer in my neighborhood, I feel safer. When I see the officer in my neighborhood, I feel like the traffic concerns I have are being addressed. And there are a lot of things that speak to just that visibility of officers really aid in that psychological comfort of people, regardless of what the accident data is or the safety data is. There is absolutely perceptions that people have by seeing officers. As you may be familiar, the city of Bowie, as many other communities, have challenges in terms of hiring officers, and we are below our full complement of police officers. We actively recruit and hire, but for quite a while now, we have been below our full complement of officers. So from what we have budgeted and what the direction the council has given, we have not succeeded with that in terms of being able to hire a full complement of officers across the community. So when we are able to do that, when we get enough interest in people being police officers again and realizing what a great place it is to work for the city of Bowie and law enforcement, as those come about, that will help those issues. But in terms of the traffic calming, in terms of all of these measures here that we discuss, very much the purpose of these is to remove the need from an officer in regards to doing this. That the perception of safety, the actual reduction of speed takes place through psychological or physical measures that generate that safer environment without having to use an officer. Officers are highly effective when they are right there. When they are not on that street, the effectiveness goes away. So we'd love to have officers all over the community to be able to address all of this, but even our full complement of officers would really not be addressing all of these concerns.
All right, I appreciate your concern, but my perception of officers, it caused me to slow down very quickly, and there are some areas I know that, like on Mount Oak and Mitchellville Road, it's periodically you have a speed camera, not a speed camera there, but officers there, and with them not there that morning or that evening, it kind of gives you that thought that, look, just calm down, be light on the pedal. So yeah, but thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Estev?
Really quickly, can we add to your list, Dan, of streets, Whitehall, Chapel Forge, Yorktown, and Overbrook, and I can follow up with exact block areas. We have a tiered traffic calming implementation list. The lowest on that list could include things like striping, visual cues, etc. What I would suggest as a policy consideration is that we currently have a petition process through which residents can override speed study results to get certain traffic calming implemented on their streets. It's been done around the city. It requires 90% of all residents on a given street and 60% on all side streets to sign. That's very high. What I'm wondering is, for our lowest tier traffic calming, particularly striping, painted visual cues, and I would like to add to that four-way stops, maybe we can lower that threshold significantly, maybe 20% on the street that is impacted. Since those are low-cost measures, they're not going to bust the budget, and getting 20% of people on Whitehall Drive is still quite a lot of people. Something like that could go a long way in addressing both the sense that residents have about they want to be engaged, their feeling of control over the process, as well as the effect of having certain traffic calming implemented in an incremental, not over the top kind of way. I think that would go a really long way in addressing a lot of residents' concerns. Does staff have any thoughts about something like that?
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to chime in on this one. What I think we ought to do with the policy, this policy is your policy, it's not ours, it's yours. So, but what we can certainly do between now and the next time we have a discussion, whenever you assign it, we can have our city engineer and some of his people go through the policy and lower the standards and lower the bar, which is what we're talking about here, right? All right, and then bring that policy back to you so that you can take a look at it. Either bless it, tell us to take it lower, take it higher, and then set forth. But that would be a real work session here. But we'll the next time we come back, if this is what you want, we'll go back, take a look at that policy. Dan's in charge of a task force. They'll sit there, and where 60% is required, we may come back and say, okay, let's make it 30, and so forth, and so that you can get to the real traffic calming easier, which is what I think we want here. That's one of the things we want. And so, because I've been in cities where, the street, you took 50% of the street residents to get a speed hump, and there was no concern for the side streets. Now, so one question, do we want to keep that in there? That's a question I have for you right now, because I'm inclined to take it out. you know, and then there's a focus on the street. But that's the sort of thing, we're gonna come back, we're gonna mark up this study, put our recommendations in there, bring it back, so we can have a 30, 40-minute discussion where you all can say, okay, we like this, we don't like this, we like this, but it's gonna be like a little tedious, but that's what it's gonna take to get through it. It may be all we can do that day, but that's, so at the end of it, you say, okay, this is the policy that you all can vote on, and we can then implement. How about that?
If I may.
Mr. Steff, anything more?
Sorry, just on the city manager's remarks. I think something like that would be a good idea. I would like a little bit more expertise feedback before we jump into that. Maybe a short report from staff between now and our next council meeting that makes some initial recommendations based on our discussion tonight, the work they've already done, and maybe we don't go through the entire traffic calming policy. We've read, I know the past council had the opportunity to read it. It is a bit long, but maybe we can target policy changes in certain low-hanging fruit areas that we have discussed before as a council. But I think some level of recommendation from staff between now and our next meeting would be appreciated before we do a complete policy review. Because I'm certainly not an expert, and I'm not sure that I would be comfortable just going through the margins and crossing out what I personally.
The recommendations that would come from us would be a recommendation from our city engineer, who is an expert in traffic, and if that's what you all want, otherwise we can do it any way you like.
Understood. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Steff. Mr. Mayor?
I think that the conversation is good, and we're on the right track. I think it would be great to have a marked up policy that gives us some general guidelines, but I think it would be advantageous for us as a council to make sure that be a working document, one that we can start with. And as we talked about doing a working session, and maybe even have, if we believe we need outside expertise, as Councilmember Steff pointed out, then we do that. But I think we also have to understand that we can take this policy and do it incrementally, one portion at a time, and start to implement that. So we don't have to do everything in one swoop of the pen. So we can look at taking it in pieces and doing it, and understanding that this is a major issue, and it may require a lot of time on our part as a council to really digest and understand all the nuances of what we need to do, because this is something moving forward for the city that we hope will be there for a very long time, because we'll do such a good job with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, if I may, I'll take an opportunity here to, any further comments or questions? Mr. Brady?
Thank you. Real quickly, and maybe the two newest members on the council don't have the document, but this isn't the first we've discussed this as a body. This is a carryover from the previous council. Has, at any point in the previous discussions, have they actually have they looked at and gone over and been provided a copy of the traffic calming measure?
So this traffic calming policy that we're discussing now was discussed by the previous iteration of the council.
Right.
We did not go through it specifically at the last conversation. I believe it was more like a couple of years ago that we had actually looked at the policy and had talked about the policy. It was, maybe even a little more than 2 years, maybe more than 2.5 years ago that the council received and read and talked about the policy itself.
You know, it wasn't part of the packet before we discussed it but when it came up
Okay, so,
a month or so ago, but we didn't go through it in detail, right?
okay, well, two of us don't have that, and it's been many, many years since I've seen the city's policy.
We'll get you both a fresh copy, yes.
Because I think that's the starting point. You have to have that document in front of you in order to go through and tweak on it. and say this threshold's too high. We need to be careful. If we lower the threshold, we need to be careful that we don't cause the unintended consequences that the city manager was talking about. Because if you make it easier for the Main Street residents to get traffic calming, it may shift traffic to side streets and become more of a problem, maybe even more threatening situation develop. So I think we need to have the document in front of us as we're going through and talking about it, because tonight I've seen and heard a lot of generalities about what traffic calming is about, and I'd rather, the engineering made, the analytical approach, I want to have the document in front of me as we go through and talk about these. This is inappropriate, this is excessive, why didn't we think of this? Can we think outside the box? But without having the document in front of us, I think it's a challenge to do that in an effective way that can produce a better product coming out of the process. And I'm hoping that's what we are looking for. And I just make a general comment, perception is reality. Mr. Assistant City Manager, you're talking about how, people think that they're speeding. Well, if they think they're speeding on their road, to them, there is speeding on their road. And when I see a car drive down the road, I don't, looking at it, I say, I don't think that's doing 25. I don't think it's within the speed limit, but I don't know because I don't have a trained eye. If I had a radar gun, I would definitely know. But, the perception is reality when it comes to our citizens, and we need to tweak on that either through ways to change attitudes, and that is a heck of a challenge for any government to do, because people don't want to be told what to do, and they're going to do as they damn well please. So that the policy needs to be effective, it needs to be fair and appropriate, but at the same time, I think it needs to be restrained a little bit so we don't go to the excesses, whether it's through spending a lot of money on failed traffic calming devices or doing nothing and having fatalities result. So we've got to strike the balance in the middle. And so I would please provide at least the two of us that are new, the most recent version of that, so we can read through it and come up with some assessment of where we think the starting point is so we can move forward. And I think it's going to take time, and it's going to be a budget issue. And I'd like to see if there's other ways we can address the speeding aspect, because that's really what we're talking about. In maybe a more proactive way, can we think out of the box? I'm sitting up here thinking, are only police officers, are they the only ones that have the authority to issue speeding tickets? So that we have to rely on a police officer, a full-fledged police officer.
Yes, sir.
Okay, or a camera.
Or a
one
camera,
or the other.
correct.
Okay, so just maybe trying to figure out a different way to approach it. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Councilman Brady. If I may, let
Mr.
me.
Wolfley, could I
Yes, sir.
make one mention? We will get that policy document to the members of the council, but for any of the public that is watching this meeting tonight, it is available on the city's website. We have a traffic calming policy section of the website, and that policy document is there. So anyone that's interested, it is available for the public to see, but we'll get that specifically to you all.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Assistant City Manager. All right, so if I may, I'm going to try and summarize where we've been. It's been a longer discussion than I anticipated, but it is an important issue, as we've all heard from our constituents, so it's a worthy time for the council to spend. So first and foremost, I think Councilmember Rogers, highlighted something that I like too, which is think big, and you got 3, 1, 2, and 3. So I'll go back to what you were commenting on. First and foremost, we currently have police activity, camera activity going on. There's a lot of activity that is being undertaken in this area, so that's good news. I want to ensure everybody knows that this is not something that we're just kind of sitting around waiting for nothing to happen. There is activity going on, so continue to good work on that. And again, I'd like to thank staff for all the hard work in getting those cameras in place, because I know it's been a long slog, and I appreciate you guys putting up with me and needling and asking over the years, so thank you. So that's first and foremost. Secondly, for the short term, Council Member Ndebumadu pointed out, it's a long time between now and budget session, and it's a wee bit longer than we care to wait for any type of action. And I think we've seen from everybody here this evening, kind of comments go the same way. So really, in the short term, we're looking at policy changes that we might be able to make, and I think we've come around to a consensus that we're looking for staff to recommend, make recommendations on policy changes to our current policy to make it more accessible. That is to say, traffic calming more accessible, whether it's the standards by which it generates a yes or no, or as Councilmember Stev said, an ability to override the results. So maybe a little bit of both. I would like to add something in. Councilmember Ndebumadu mentioned the Internet of Things. There may be some insights from our friends on the IT committee. I don't know if they have any or not, but certainly safety might be. Safety committee as well as staff is working towards making their recommendations, if they'd be so kind as to reach out to those two organizations and see if they have any insights that they'd like to share with staff as you are making your recommendations in the short term. And then for the long term, I've heard staff talking about budget process, potential for consultant, and increased costs of calming that might be worked into next year's budget as well. And we'd see those come through as part of that budget process. Did I miss anything? Are we all good? All right. Do we need a motion, or is everybody in consensus with what we have? Consensus?
Consensus.
All right, let's, if we may, we'll send staff to work on that, and we appreciate the good work so far and look forward to the results of your upcoming endeavors. Is there any idea from your standpoint of how long it would take for you to come back, say next week with policy? I'm just kidding. For something that might be worth consideration in another discussion?
Let me consult with the other folks on the team, and we'll come back with you an estimated time frame for when we're ready to come back to you.
Outstanding. Thank you very much, Mr. Assistant City Manager. All right. Well, that was quick and easy. And that's only on old business. Good heavens. Next item on old business is our online pilot job training program. Again, we'll turn to city staff to lead the discussion on this. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is K-Star. I am the grant writer for the city and also program coordinator for a variety of different endeavors, including, can you guys hear me? Okay, including in this case, the online pilot job training program that the City Council authorized last year, which ran from April of 2022 to April of 2023. We presented a final report on the results of that program, including participant feedback and course completion and skill increase and various other metrics back in September. And we were requested to survey the participants of the program and just get an idea about their feelings and what they gained from the program and what kind of feedback they might offer. We devised that survey in consultations somewhat with Coursera. We asked them for examples of these kind of surveys that have been used by other clients of theirs, and they provided some forms and templates that we drew on, as well as other surveys that I've done in the past evaluating workforce training programs that the city has operated. We launched this survey. It had 11 questions. We were trying to keep it really brief and easy to complete. We launched it in the beginning of October on the 2nd, which was a Monday, and I asked for everyone to return their statements to complete the survey by Friday, October the 16th. This was an online survey powered by SurveyMonkey, and we had 149 program participants that I contacted via email. Of that group, 43 of them were able to complete the survey. And for most of the questions were rating things on a scale of 1 to 10. That was a template that Coursera recommended as most effective for getting information for these kind of feedback surveys. For the average rating for the course offerings that Coursera provided was 7 out of 10. Slightly less than half completed a course or achieved a professional certificate. 45% of all participants that responded to the survey said that they were able to finish a course or get a certificate using the platform. Comparatively few hired a new position or got a promotion or transitioned to a new career field based on that training. 11% said they were hired at a new place, 12% got a promotion, and 18% changed careers or industries. The majority, 81%, indicated that they would be interested in further training options of this type or other types of services. I also included questions about what kind of job seeker services they had used or were aware of. Very few of them were aware of the public library as a resource. About half of them were aware of Employ Prince George's, which I did include in all of the emails I sent to participants to make sure they were aware of that service. And most of them indicated an interest in additional services outside of training, things like internships, job seeking assistance, job fairs, hiring events, that kind of thing. Nearly half of the respondents, 21 of them, left some sort of comment. Most were fairly positive about the program, enthusiastic about potential further support for job seekers in the county. There were a few points of criticism, mostly related to the offerings on the Coursera platform. As we discussed in September, when the program was launched back in April of 2022, the Coursera program was then expanding their library, and that expansion continues. But some of the offerings were more comprehensive and ended in a professional certificate. Some of them were just one or two courses related to a specific field. And since this program obviously was open to all city residents, there would be some folks where what they were interested in was heavily covered, and other folks where the topics they were interested in just were not yet available on the platform or were not covered as in depth. So that seemed to be the main breadth of that criticism. A few also felt the need to clarify that the training they received was a factor in them getting a new position or getting a promotion, but not the only piece of that change in career or job. So that pretty much summarizes the data from the survey. I have the full response, and that was included in your packet, so you guys can drill down into those questions more deeply if you would like. So our conclusion was that the participants of the program found it a positive experience. All of them were interested in further support for job seekers in the city or the county level. As we have mentioned several times in the past, we did partner with Employ Prince George's on this initiative, and we continue to be in conversation with them about the services they are providing. Their services do continue to expand rapidly. They recently contacted us regarding a program that they're trying to launch with a number of municipalities here in the county to launch computer labs that would be hosted by the city. The technology would be provided by Employ Prince George's, so the computers themselves. The city would come up with some sort of staffing and scheduling and access for the public. It would be free and open, and it would include access to their various training programs, which includes Coursera and I believe a few other platforms. And that's a conversation that's ongoing, and we know that they are bringing online a number of other programs or expanding programs for job seekers here in the county. And that information is also, I believe, included in your packet. So any questions about the report or the survey?
Can you provide the final summary of the recommendation?
So the conclusions that we got, I mean, the recommendation from staff is for us to continue conversation with Employ Prince George's and coordinate with them, because they do have a wide variety of programs targeting a wide variety of populations: youth, veterans, seniors, people looking to transition careers, people with different education levels. The computer lab program that they pitched to us just 2 months ago is, as I said, it's a new program that they're getting various municipalities on board with, and it sounded like it could be an excellent opportunity for the city of Bowie.
The staff is not recommending that we proceed with our current Coursera.
Our feeling is that Employ Prince George's provides a comprehensive program, including Coursera licenses, at a much higher level than the city does.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I'll open up the floor for comments, questions, thoughts on the council. I'll start with Ms. Ndebumadu, please.
I promise you one day it'll have a ring to it and you won't forget it.
Ndebumadu will roll off the tongues of all smoothly and silky.
There you go. There you go. First of all, I just want to thank you so much for the report. It was great. I have two requests. The first one is, would we be able to just forward this assessment and presentation in County Councilmember Watson's office? I think this would be helpful information for her to just have. So that's the first one. And then I think the second question that I have is, if we can, based off of the survey, which is kind of what I already thought, Is there a way to possibly just maybe include a section in our spotlight of what Employ Prince George's has to offer so that we could just spread the awareness to the constituency? So I think that's a gap that I see as well. Just a lot of people don't know about the resources that are there. And then I think the other thing I'd like to highlight as feedback to see if there is an area of opportunity, I think that might apply more to Una's department. I've heard from a number of different veterans in District 4 who are looking for support as they transition back into the workforce. So I think anything that we can do to maybe highlight and just whether that's, just speaking more to what resources are out there that are in a more direct and concise and clear manner, I think that would be super helpful and kind of bridge a little bit of that gap. But other than that, great presentation. Thanks for it. And those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ndebumadu. Councilwoman Rogers.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So a couple comments. This is stuff that I'm just very interested in, and it piques my interest every time I hear about self-directed online programs. So I took a class with Harvard University, and it was self-directed, it was online, it was leadership. And part of the training was around why people, they were doing assessments on why people do not complete self-directed training, because it was even a problem with Harvard University getting people to complete self-directed training. So this is not unusual, this is common, so we understand that. So I appreciate that. The other piece is Employ Prince George's. Putting on my other hat with the Bowie Chamber, Walter Simmons was the keynote speaker for our annual meeting earlier this year. And before I heard him talk, I didn't know much about this organization. They're a great organization, and they have great resources, and they have training. And I always tell folks in any type of business setting or whatever, always look for partnerships, because if someone has the expertise and is doing it well, leverage it. And I think the decision to leverage and use Employ Prince George's is a great idea. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Rogers. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you very much then. I'd like to thank staff for all the good work on this, and we appreciate your time and energies on the subject. All righty. Next item, new business. Bowie Boys and Girls Club baseball field allocation discussion. This was put on the agenda, I believe, by Councilmember Esteve. Mr. Esteve, the floor is yours.
I don't want to steal any thunder from our guest, who I know has been waiting with his 2 young children a very long time, so I'll turn it over to our visitor tonight from the Bowie Boys and Girls Club.
Thank you. I did have a few slides that were up, but it looks like they've gone away.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. We're waiting for technical solution for our slide deck.
May I take one moment, a minute to mention something right now?
Absolutely. The floor is yours, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, yes, I'd like to ask us all to keep our thoughts and prayers for the city of Greenbelt. As I was made aware, Councilmember Rick Gordon passed away suddenly yesterday. And I just want to make sure that we, as a council, but also as a city, pass on our condolences and our support for the city of Greenbelt and his loss. So again, if we could, please keep in mind the family of Rick Gordon, as well as all the residents of the city of Greenbelt. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent.
All righty, floor is back to you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Good evening, council members. Congratulations on your re-election election. I too did not bring a picture of a hatchet, but I'll say in the spirit of baseball, this is a team sport. My name is Brandon Bowers. I'm a resident of the city of Bowie and have lived here for the past 13 years, and I'm joined today by our 14-year-old daughter, Olivia, and our 10-year-old son, Coleman, who was put to sleep or has woken up since during the traffic calming discussion. So it had its intended effect, at least on him. I'm here today as the coach of Bowie Baseball's 11U travel baseball team. Bowie Baseball is part of the Bowie Boys and Girls Club and offers recreational and travel baseball programs to its 425 players. Baseball is an incredible sport that not only develops athletic ability, but also teaches invaluable life skills such as teamwork, discipline, and resilience. This is especially important for the youth in our community, who deserve every opportunity to grow and succeed, both on and off the field. I personally benefited from participating in Boys and Girls Club sports and aged out of the foster care system at 18 years of age. Sports kept me off the streets and placed countless positive mentors in my life. At a time when crime rates are rising nationally, we need to be investing in youth programs that deter crime and violence and promote integrity, hard work, and commitment. For the past 5 years, I've been a head coach of a Little League team with South Maryland Little League in Davidsonville, Maryland. Over this past summer, I decided to start a team here within Bowie, focusing on 11-year-old and 10-year-old travel baseball. My goal in starting this team with the Bowie Boys and Girls Club was to plug a gap that existed where we only had 8, 9, and 10-year-old teams, and then 13-year-old teams, with a significant gap in an age group of players that we were losing to neighboring counties, those being Anne Arundel, Howard, etc. Travel baseball, it's an incredible opportunity for young athletes in our community to hone their skills and increase their chances of success at the high school and even collegiate levels. However, the high cost of joining a travel baseball team often excludes deserving, talented children from participating. Over the past few months, our 11U travel baseball team has secured community sponsorships to provide affordable options for families who may not be able to afford expensive programs that can cost upwards of $4,000 a year. In comparison, our cost for being a member of the Bowie baseball team is $250. But despite all of our hard work, we're facing a major challenge that is affecting our team's ability to play safely and compete with other teams from surrounding counties. I'm presenting on this slide just some of the requirements for 11 and 12-year-olds in terms of the facilities that they need to play on. A 50-foot pitching mound measured from home plate to the pitcher's mound, 70-foot base path between home plate, first base, second base, and third base, and team dugouts. The point of this is those requirements are relatively low at this level of baseball. Currently, there is no baseball field in the city of Bowie suitable for 11 and 12-year-olds to play on. We are using a softball field at Allen Pond Park and a portable pitching mound, which is not only unsafe for our players, but reflects poorly on the city's commitment to youth sports. Furthermore, the current location is located next to a basketball court at Allen Pond Park, where our kids are exposed to marijuana smoke, and parents from both the home as well as visiting teams have frequently complained about their children's exposure to it. All Bowie Boys and Girls baseball teams play at Jericho Park, with the exception of our 11 and 12-year-olds, and 13-year-olds for the time being, while one of the fields is being renovated, the 90-foot diamond. At Jericho Park, there's 4 different size fields, that accommodate both softball as well as baseball. A 60-foot diamond for our 8 and 10-year-olds, a 90-foot diamond for our 13 and 14-year-olds, and the other 60-foot field is a softball field that is currently being used by adults for softball and kickball. There's also a batting cage that's enclosed, which is a premium training aid in youth sports, especially baseball. I'm here this evening asking the City Council's consideration to convert the softball field at Jericho Park into a field for our 11 and 12-year-olds to play baseball on. This would allow us to have all Bowie Boys and Girls Club players compete together in one facility at Jericho. We can accomplish this by simply moving the bases 10 feet and building a dirt pitching mound. As a travel baseball coach, I have the opportunity to visit many neighboring counties and their facilities, and they often have sports complexes like Jericho Park, which enables them to host tournaments, but also to ensure that they've got a program that allows players to play throughout 8 all the way up to 13 and 14-year-olds when they go off to high school and hopefully compete at that level. By converting this field, it will not only provide our team with a safe and suitable location to hone their skills, but it will also show that the City of Bowie is committed to investing in youth sports and continuing that investment. We owe it to the youth of Bowie to invest in the future of this great sport and provide them with facilities they deserve. This would help create an inclusive Boys and Girls Club baseball park, which would provide the opportunity to host tournaments and further attract the attention of sponsors and passionate players. Not only will this benefit our current players, but it will also attract more young athletes in our city, bringing in revenue to our local economy. In conclusion, I urge you to consider the importance of baseball in the lives of our youth and to make the necessary changes to the field at Jericho Park that will allow us to play safely and compete at the highest level. Let's work together to provide the youth of Bowie with the chance to learn and play baseball without having to find another baseball program outside of our city and county. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. Mr. Stev?
I really appreciate the presentation. I know that we have Mr. Spurgeon, our Acting Community Services Director, here tonight, who I suspect probably has some thoughts or comments on our presentation, and the extent to which we've got the coach and Mr. Spurgeon here tonight, maybe we can sort some things out and figure out how we can move forward here.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Nick Spurgeon, as Councilman Estev mentioned, Acting Director for Community Services. Mr. Bowers, you're 100% correct on your assessment of not having a 70-foot diamond in the community. There is one. It is owned by Maryland National Capital Park and Planning, which is Fox Hill number 3. It is maintained by Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, but the city does not have one in inventory. The past councils have sent notice to Maryland National Capital Park and Planning in past letters to the commission requesting for the conversion of fields 1, 2, and 4 at Fox Hill to 2 additional 70-foot diamonds. Relative to this request, as far as the budget is concerned, we estimate that the pitching mound would be between $8,000 to $10,000. Irrigation up to $5,000 in upgrade. So max $15,000 would be needed to make these changes at this field, especially since there's no outfield fence modifications that are required. We would have to look at our allocation process for not so much the kickball league. They would be able to remain for the very limited usage that they have in the outfield, but the adult softball programs that have used that complex for greater than 25 years. Brian, Mr. Hagan, the park operations manager who's beside me right here, and I have spoken. We believe that there's some solutions available to us through the allocation process. It's something that we're getting willing to get to work on.
So if I could follow up real quick, Ben, I apologize. Yeah, so, Mr. Spurgeon, it sounds like you're saying that you're talking about a $15,000 cost, which involves installing the permanent pitching mound at the appropriate distance and irrigation.
That's correct. And part of this endeavor calls for cutting out part of the outfield to make sure that the arc is proper to allow for the proper run distances for the base paths, and some slight modifications to the irrigation system. But again, you know, we're confident at the $15,000 price point for this particular project.
Gotcha. Is $15,000 something that you have in a discretionary budget to be able
No.
to operate on shortly, or are you guys all out of discretionary funds right now?
No, we do not. That's not how we operate. So no, we do not have that available.
All right, understood. So we would be looking about at a significant delay, basically including this in next year's budget and moving forward.
That's
in the
correct.
short term, you mentioned some potential allocation juggling that might be possible. Did I hear that correctly?
That is possible. However, it doesn't really gain them anything with the shorter base distances and inability or lack of desire to use the portable mounds, pitching mounds.
Gotcha. In the hope of trying to just work through short-term solutions before we make a budget requests, and I would like us to make a budget request to make this adjustment in next year's budget, knowing that that's a little ways off for the team that's playing now. Could I just ask that Mr. Bowers be able to get your information directly and follow up with you directly?
100%, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think cutting out as many middlemen as possible will help facilitate this a little bit.
Yep.
As I know that they were previously at the field at Fox Hill and then got jostled out by an adult team. Which resulted in this domino effect of allocation issues.
Absolutely. We'll exchange information right after this meeting.
All right, I really appreciate that. Thank you. Sir. Can I just ask staff real quick, since it doesn't just impact Mr. Bowers and his players and their families, but the reporting about the marijuana smoke, which can be smelled at Allen Pond, is concerning to me. I know that we've had conversations with our county and state officials about this as well. But could we just staff follow up with us to a brief via email to current council, just a quick summary about what the existing cannabis laws are, what is currently permitted and not permitted in Bowie, and also just give us a quick summary of how our enforcement process currently looks when it comes to cannabis, because nobody should be at Allen Pond Park smelling cannabis for any reason.
If I may interject on the part for city staff, if I'm not mistaken, the entire park is a smoke-free zone. And under that circumstance, it's Mox Nix as to what's being smoked, notwithstanding the fact that there might be some other consideration.
That is correct.
And that we ought to be pursuing that as aggressively as possible at the no smoking level, plus whatever may or may not be feasible at the cannabis level.
Well, nobody's supposed to be smoking at all, you're right, at the park. So we will press the issue with our rangers and our police department, now that we've been notified that some people believe people were smoking marijuana, that we weren't aware of that, but we'll certainly press that with our park rangers. And if that is the case, then we'll have our police department come out and help us if we need be to get people to put out whatever they're smoking and or leave. That we're going to take that action as a result of this gentleman's comments.
Mr. Seff?
Real quickly, I know we've had staff level conversations with parks and plannings, and I believe our park rangers as well about this specific issue. I think it was generated, in fact, by this complaint as well as one other. And my understanding is that part of the issue is uncertainty on the part of rangers about the extent of their enforcement power. So they will approach a person in a vehicle who's got the windows rolled down and is smoking.
We'll manage that. I mean, we'll make sure they know what they can do and can't do.
Gotcha.
And when it's time for them to call the police or not.
Understood.
We'll take care of that.
One thing that I know Maryland National Capital Park and Planning has begun doing in some of their parks where they've had recurring issues is installing automatic tag readers and simply basically banning certain individuals from coming into some of their properties entirely when they've had repeat issues. I know that they've done that with some success at Saddlebrook East Park. Just something I'm throwing out there for consideration.
Well, that would be a policy issue on your part to put that in place where we would ban people based on that sort of thing. But what we will certainly do is have our park rangers thoroughly monitor that particular facility and with some special treatment and when they identify people that are smoking marijuana, that they call our police department and have them handle it from there.
Gotcha.
Yeah. May I?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, going along with that, I think there are a couple of things that I would like. I think this is all something we should really look forward to trying to accommodate. When it comes to the smoking, I would ask that if we could, city manager, initially put up more signage that makes sure people truly understand that there's no parking there, that it leaves no question that they can visibly see that all smoking is banned within the entire park. I think the other part that we need to look at, and I think as we move forward, we don't want to continue that domino effect of doing something good here and then causing problems for other groups as we move forward. So let's make sure when we talk about the allocation of the field and those who use it, that we do everything we can to support this program and do what we need to do, including talk with, in the short term, Maryland Park and Planning about utilization of what they have and seeing what we could do there. And then trying to make sure that whatever decision we make and when we look at it, that it's something that we do to try and accommodate everyone in the process, and not, like I say, continue the domino effect of then forcing other people out. I'd like to thank the coach for what he's doing because it's so important that we support our young people. And I think it's important that we provide the facilities and the access for them to pursue that. So having said that, my real thing as city manager, if we can get more signs up to notify people and let them know about that, that'll be helpful. And number two, let's see what we can do even to work with Park and Planning some more. But that's something we can talk about a little more offline and with Park and Planning from the staff. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Rogers?
Certainly, I'll be real brief. So my grandson went through I don't know if it was Boys and Girls Club, but it was a traveling baseball club. Yes, up until this summer, he played as a 19-year-old. So it's very important in his life. He loves baseball. He cries when he can't do it. So he used to. He's 19 now. But one of the things that I was wondering, as a new person on the block, I believe in partnerships, private and public. And we have the Bowie Bay Sox right here in Bowie. And it seems like, you know, some folks sitting in this room probably have some influence where there can, you know, I don't know, it could be a conversation, an introduction, and maybe they can contribute toward, that's just my idea, toward the cost of the mound, because I think it is very important, and I think it's a wonderful thing to do. So thank you for what you do. Yeah. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
May I respond to that just real quick? So Bowie Bay Sox, yes, we have established a relationship with them. Adam Poole is their marketing manager. So we're doing both fundraising efforts, but also some player development in partnership with the Bowie Bay Sox. I think in terms of the facility, there are a lot of different programs out there. Major League Baseball offers funding to municipalities who are looking to invest in facilities. It sounds like money is, a consideration for many projects and initiatives that the council is considering. There are ways for us to do this outside of the traditional budgeting process, and I would be happy as one to take some of that initiative on myself as a resident of the city and somebody who wants to see us continue to grow the game. So happy to take some initiative there.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Rogers. Councilmember Ndebumadu.
Thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem Wolfley. I think, well, first of all, thank you so much for what you're doing. I played softball in my elementary and middle school days, so very much passionate about this topic. I think one of the things that we could look at in the short term is possibly writing a letter to Bowie Bay Sox and seeing how they might be able to support some of the organizations that are in the city, as well as writing a letter to Monumental Sports. Ted Leonsis puts a lot of money towards this stuff. And so I think the way that we can support you as a city government is making that ask in addition to your ask, in combination, to show the urgency and just show the impact of what the team is doing and how it's impacting children here in Bowie. So I think that's something that's rather light lift and shift that we can do based off of Councilmember Rogers' suggestions, as well as Monumental, because I think they have a lot of money to give, and we would love to receive that and help you receive that for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ndebumadu. Councilmember Brady.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. The presentation you had was, the PowerPoint was nice. It would have been, can you get that to us? Because there's some details on a couple of those slides that would be helpful.
Yes, sir.
Either I didn't hear it or it wasn't mentioned, but what time frame are you looking at to have these changes made accessible to you and your team? Are you talking about yesterday? You're talking about 1st of January? You're talking about July when the season starts? What time frame?
Yeah, ideally, the spring would be nice, 2024. That said, this is more so about just baseball within the city of Bowie. And whether it benefits the team that I'm currently coaching, they will grow to 12U, 13U. But there is an 8U team that is just starting that is going to matriculate up through 10, 11, 12U baseball, that they would benefit by us having a field to accommodate their level of play. So for me, yes, it would be great to have it in the spring, but more importantly, I think for the program and for Bowie baseball, is to have one just in general at some point.
Okay, and the reason I asked that question, because we don't have the money to do it, according to staff, which is understandable. And if we factor it into our budget cycle, it would be next July when we'd start doing it. And if that is, it's not the best way to do it, but if it's acceptable, then maybe that's kind of a compromise to move forward in order to support you, but not kind of disrupt the budgetary process that we have right now. We need to be careful that when we accommodate one group, we may negatively impact another group. So we need to be very careful with that, but I'm sure staff will factor that in as they move forward with that. So thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Councilmember Brady. All right, any others? Seeing none. I'll summarize, I think, where I believe we ended up with this discussion. So short terms, looks like we have some work that staff will engage with Mr. Bowers in terms of scheduling, some opportunities that might exist within the existing infrastructure. There's also the opportunity for the budget year coming up that we'd see something there, notwithstanding efforts for alternative funding to include other sources like Major League Baseball, Leonsis, or other groups. And then, of course, the consideration of a trickle-down effect that might affect other parts of the community, which I think staff will be adroit in addressing. So I thank you very much for coming today. Mr. Bowers, very much appreciate your time and your commitment to the community and to our children. It is greatly appreciated. And whatever they're paying you, they ought to double that. I think 0 times 0, it comes,
0 times 0 is 0.
Comes in right at the same time. And thank you, Mr. Staff, for bringing this to Council's attention as well.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. All right, with that having been said, the favorite motion of the day, adjournment. Is there anyone who'd like to pose that motion?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to move to adjourn.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Proper motion and a proper second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. You had me worried. All opposed? All righty. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Good job, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good night.